All right, it is Monday, July 21st, and I am here with the lovely, the talented Alyssa Farah Griffin. Hello, Alyssa.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
Good. We had a fun show today, which is odd. It's funny. There were so many hot topics in the world. We had a lot of guests on the show today, so we only had time for one. And I came in, I would have lost the bet. I would have thought we would have been talking about one of the other big stories, but all the hosts wanted to talk about Coldplay.
I'm telling you, this was the biggest story of the weekend.
It was.
An 18-year-old girl who lives on my street was talking about it. A neighbor who's probably in her early 60s was asking about it. It spans generations. It spans politics. The footage was just unbelievable. Whoopi even got into it because sometimes the lighter ones.
I never would have thought. Yeah, but after a week of Jeffrey Epstein last week, it was good to have something else to talk about.
100%. America needs a break from Jeffrey Epstein.
But we'll be talking about him on this podcast. We'll get to that soon.
Yes.
Since our last podcast on Thursday, one of the big stories was Stephen Colbert's show was canceled. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. This has now become a big, giant story for certainly for people who work in television because it was kind of shocking. It's the highest rated late night talk show, but also it's become kind of a culture war thing and kind of because his audience was definitely liberal. I worked at the Late Show, full disclosure, with David Letterman for 11 years. So I feel this very personally because that's a franchise that means a lot to me. The Ed Sullivan Theater, where I did that show, is like my home away from home. I'm very sad to think they're going to sell it or something's going to happen to it. But what are your broad stroke takes on this? Because there's basically two camps. There are people who say television is changing, a big giant show in a big theater, super expensive, losing money. Apparently, the reports are saying they were losing $40 million a year. But also the timing coming up with the Skydance merger with CBS and all the
Trump
pressures.
taking credit for it.
Trump taking credit for the fact that he was being fired or being proud of announcing the fact he was being fired. So is this politics? Is this business? What do you think is going on?
I think it's a two things can be true at once situation. So I also was a little heartbroken by it. I grew up watching late night. I'm going to be honest, I don't really watch late night now. I watch the clips that go viral, like when Kimmel's got a great segment, when Fallon does something funny. I watch the clips, but there is the icon that is that show and the idea that it's going away and that there's not going to be another big comedian who's someday going to get that mantle made me sad and nostalgic. I think it's both. So I think without the politics of the moment and the coming merger, that show would have stayed on air for at least a few more years. But I think you cannot ignore the economics of the industry right now.
Right.
So while it was the number one show, he commanded a very large audience share, more than 2 million viewers a night. They were losing reportedly $40 million a year while he was taking reportedly a $20 million salary. The question, I love Colbert. I want to say this. I was a big Colbert, the Colbert Report back in the day was one of my favorites. He's somebody I've always just really liked. I'm curious, did anyone come to him and say, hey, you're making this, you employ 200 people. What can we do to make it more economical? Because at the end of the day, businesses are going to make decisions based on their bottom line. So while I'm really sad to see such a legacy of a show go away, I don't think you can ignore that nowadays there's a lot of these upstart new media companies that with 200 people, they could make 20 shows. And the thing that I keep thinking about in this situation is the human capital, because I just feel sad for the 200 people. I mean, that was your dream job working in late night.
It was.
All of his staff, this is their dream job, and to have the rug pulled out makes me very sad. So I just want to know, did the company tell them more beforehand?
It doesn't sound like they did, but it's hard to know for sure. When I worked in late night television, there was just Jay Leno and David Letterman for a long part of it, and eventually Kimmel too. And then Conan O'Brien late at night. Yeah. But it was definitely where every interview made news.
Yeah, that's what it has to be, must-watch TV in the way. Well, and I would say just with the change in the industry, because it's no dig. I mean, Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon, they've all continue to command great audiences. But the way it's changed, I was reading a stat that Johnny Carson had something 10 times the audience late night does. And Letterman had 6 times. So it's it is changing that it's not just there's the core institutions.
Well, there's
that
other things
watching.
To watch now. That's just what it is. If you're awake, you might be watching Netflix. You might be watching Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Everyone's got more options.
Or Hulu on Disney Plus.
Everyone's got more options. Yeah. And then you also know you can catch it on on YouTube the next morning, and you can see what goes viral and what everybody's talking about. They still have those moments. Tonight, I will be watching Jon Stewart. I will be watching Stephen Colbert, and I'll be watching Jimmy Kimmel to see the reaction.
Well, and by the way, the cachet of something does have a market value, even if something's losing money, I would argue, because as much as like, I get that if you have a book coming out, you go on Joe Rogan and 5 to 10 million people might listen to you over the course of a week of an episode being out. But every person who has a book still wants to come two places, Late Night and The View. It's just a fact.
Well, we sell books.
We sell books. Our audience pays attention to what we say they should consume, and ask any author, like, those are the bookings they care about. And that won't go away just because maybe new streaming competitors might command more numbers. There's this built-in sort of trusted audience with those. And I did want to say, like, I just think Trump taking the victory lap for it it's just gross. People lost their jobs. It's a dream. I know for a fact that Trump, in a different era of his life, really esteemed late night. He
oh my gosh, I produced him on Letterman often.
Yeah, like this is a guy who. So I just in general, even if someone you dislike or an institution you don't like, people lose their job, I'll never get people rooting for it. But I mean,
no,
Trump's gonna Trump.
We'll move on. But the one thing I'll say is, if I was producing Late Night right now, the one thing I would borrow from The View. Go live. Nobody wants to work at 11:30 live at night, but I'll tell you, that's what people want to tune in. They don't want to feel like they missed the moment. They want to feel, it's why Saturday Night Live still works in the way it does. It's having its biggest ratings ever because people want to watch it while it happens.
And think of the fact how many times SNL's probably had to scrap things last minute and make tweaks because the news cycle changed. Like, I'm pretty sure I read that they got Kamala Harris when she did the guest appearance, like, it was just hours beforehand. It had been a weeks-long negotiation, but the commitment happened like day of. Yeah. And that's the stuff you have to be able to pivot and do in real time.
Absolutely.
The unpredictability.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about something else. Jeffrey Epstein, because it's been a few minutes since we talked about it. Late Friday, the Department of Justice filed the request to unseal grand jury records because Donald Trump directed them to. Is this going to satisfy anybody? Is this story going to go away, or are we going to be talking about it when we come back in the fall?
Story's not going away, and I don't expect this will satisfy people. So one thing I really appreciate, I feel like Sarah Haynes has been good about every time we've talked about this story, because we kind of did it every day last week, starting from a place of like, ignore the politics for a minute. Young people were victimized. We know that there were as many as 1,000 victims. These were young women, vulnerable, taken advantage of by wealthy, powerful men. And I wish that this story would become more victim-centric and reminding people not like the cheap politics of it, but just like how horrific it is. And then pivoting to like, there's a reason people care about that, because it is, I mean, to quote SVU, it's like the most horrific of crimes. It's the thing that people, I think, just palpably, regardless of their politics, thinks is so evil, and people are so sick of people in power getting away with things no one else would. So starting from that point, this has been the one thing that has shaken Trump's base in a way that nothing really has in the decade he's been in politics. And I think it's because it is so core to so many in his base, and so many senior people around him swore that he was going to be the one person who got to the bottom of what happened, who told them the truth. The problem with him now calling for DOJ to unseal this is he used a very specific word in that statement. He said to unseal and release the pertinent details and
information. I noticed that as well. Yeah.
That is literally a directive to say, release what you deem fit for the public. So if there is anything, and I have no evidence to believe this, but that incriminates Donald Trump or people close to him or friends of his and, you know, people he knew at Mar-a-Lago, that could be interpreted as a tacit nod to not release that information.
Right.
And if if the Attorney General had ever wanted to just release everything that they could that wasn't victim sensitive, that would have happened already. I also have kind of come to the place of like, I don't think we're ever going to get the truth on this. I think that, you know, there could be outside efforts, whether in Congress, whether legal efforts to get some of this information unsealed or released. But at the end of the day, the Attorney General has significant purview to decide what she chooses to release. You can hide behind things being what we call law enforcement sensitive. That could mean it involves law enforcement informants. You could hide behind there's victims that could be, their information could be released. There's so many, and some of them legitimate, but like legal remedies you could hide behind to keep this information from getting to the public.
You have to laugh because in the last election, many people ran on the premise of release the Epstein files. I'm going to get in and do it on the far right. And now, very conceivably, the left is going to run on the idea, 100%. Put me in there and we will release the Epstein files.
100%. I mean, it's unbelievable. I just can't imagine. This is where this whole like deep state notion really triggers me because I've been accused of being deep state in my time in government. It's so easy to talk a big game about what you're going to do when you have the power. And then you see it and it's often very different than you thought it was.
Sure.
So like some of these people, I think thought they were going to walk in and it was going to be a picture of like Bill Clinton on a plane, like given the peace sign, and they'd be like, let's release it. There's a reason that this wasn't released in the first Trump term, most likely. There may even be a reason it wasn't released in the Biden's administration. And it just looks so disingenuous and dishonest to your audience that like you made this your entire personality and now you have the power to release it and aren't doing it.
Listen, it goes for every aspect of life, in business, in any aspect of professional life. The view is always great from the cheap seats.
100%.
And I hear it about
as someone now in the cheap seats, it's the view's always better.
Of course. No, I mean, like being on the outside, it's great. But listen, I hear it from viewers of The View. Well, if I ran that show, I'd do X and Y. No, you wouldn't. Believe me. You don't know. If I ran the Yankees, we'd be in the World Series. Maybe. I doubt it. It's always easy when you're on the outside and you think you know better. But
100%.
There we go.
But yeah, well, Rachel Scott was absolutely right. It's not going to go away. There is a part of his base that feels so deeply betrayed in a way that something on policy never would in the same way. But this was just so intrinsic to why they believed in him. They thought he was going to be the guy who took on the powers that be. And now he's kind of shown them it's no different than every other politician as they perceive him. The president seems so desperate to change the subject. Today, he tweeted out an AI-generated video of Obama being arrested. I mean, it's so just weird. Really. And then now that he's leaning into this Washington Commanders, making them change the name back to the Redskins. I mean, just... There was one that I liked, to give him credit, Mexican Coke.
Oh,
the Coca-Cola with real sugar.
It's very good.
It's excellent. It's so much better. But I'm just kidding, though. No, it's going to be weeks and weeks of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
I even think the whole firing Jerome Powell thing last week was to get the headlines on the mainstream media to change and cover that for a little bit. So this was a point I made on the show maybe Friday. The base that has always been with him since 2015, regardless of all of the things, January 6th, name the thing, they will always go back to him. Most of his core, that like core 30% is always going to go back to him. Who he's going to lose because of Epstein, I believe, are these new voters he got this election who put him over the edge, not just to win the election, but win the popular vote. These lower propensity voters who maybe aren't super engaged in politics. They probably got engaged this cycle from sort of the manosphere of politics, the Joe Rogans of the world, bought into like, oh, this guy might be interesting. He might be actually doing something different than politicians. A lot of these people were probably Bernie bros 5 years ago. Those are the ones he's going to lose, and it's a very sizable number of people. But what he also has to be worried about is he has a lot of control at places like, some of these right of center media outlets, Newsmax, Fox News, et cetera, because they're almost codependent on the Republican Party and on this White House. He doesn't have that with these outside new media podcasters who built followings before him, independent of him, and then ended up coming around to him. And those are the ones who I think see their authenticity as like their calling card and how they make their money. And I don't think that they're going to flip back and be like, Trump told me to stop talking about it, so I'm going to. That's the difference between them and legacy right-wing media.
It's funny. I catch myself often because when we talk about his popularity, what voters he's going to lose, I forget that he's not running again.
I know. It's so weird.
It is weird. So then whether all this applies to who comes in next is a legitimate question.
Yeah. By the way, not that this is a topic we would do on the show because it's just too amorphous, but like no one will ever on the Republican side be the singular force in Republican politics that Donald Trump is again. This idea that J.D. Vance or Rubio or DeSantis or whoever is going to command this, like, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue loyalty, it won't exist. Yeah. So even if our politics doesn't go back to normal in terms of like policies and how we talk about each other or talk to each other, we're never going to have this hero worship, he can do no wrong, again with a political figure.
I've heard some on the right say that the Democrats had that with Obama and it was the same level. Do you agree with that?
I think the love and can do no wrong, they're such different figures. Like I don't think we had an example of Obama doing something that would have lost him his base.
Fair enough, yeah.
But I do think, but there was a hero worship with him that I do think the left has had a hard time moving on from Obama. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes if you're lucky enough to get, like in a political party, the greatest figure of the last 50 years and live through it, there's a big element of nobody quite compares after, and I think that's what they're dealing with.
Interesting.
Like, and just to be honest, no one on the left has compared to Obama since Obama.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. All right, so we had Tony winner Nicole Scherzinger here today. It was a really emotional interview. It was great. We showed a picture of her as a little girl, and you asked her about what she would say to little Nicole now. She started to cry. It was very sweet.
I mean, she's unbelievable. So she's getting all the flowers for her performance in
Deservedly
Sunset Boulevard. It's completely deservedly so. But think of this woman who, like, she came up in the Pussycat Dolls. They were hugely successful. But to go from, like, that Nicole that we knew, she was on X Factor, she's done a lot, but then to be just the most talked about, one of the most talked about people on Broadway this last season in this, like, incredible performance that's going to be remembered for years and years to come. I think it was such a, like, capstone moment for her. But the incredible thing is she's very young and can still have a huge, like, I can't wait to see all the things she's going to do. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly. I love that people are getting to see this other side of her that's like so just extraordinary.
Also, little known fact, she sang our theme song, the one before this one, her and Brandy.
I know. I totally forget that. How did we pull that off?
This is for my girls. And listen, we had Mary J. Blige before that. We draw the big names.
I love that.
Leona Lewis right now.
Yeah.
And this is everyone's favorite. Everyone loves this version of the theme song.
I love it. I was a little sad to see This Is For My Girls go, but now I'm obsessed with this song.
When this one started, it took me a minute. I listened to it and I'm like, Diane Warren's a genius. I'm sure it just is going to take me a minute.
It's more of a slow burn, but it gets you in the vibe.
I don't have the ability to hear a song once and know it's a hit.
Yeah,
I can see a movie. I can watch a TV show. I've got that music. I have to hear something 100 times.
I agree.
But this one, she's a genius. You just lean in.
Yes.
All right. So I want to ask you, going back to Nicole, can you relate to looking back at your younger self and being amazed at where you are now in your life and career?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know. I mean, can't you? Like, I can't, I always dreamed big. Like, I always wanted to do something interesting or exciting, but that might have looked different. Like, I wanted to be a teacher at one point. I briefly wanted to be an actress. I don't have acting jobs. But like, when I think of everything I've gotten to experience and do, I could cry and I could pinch myself. Like, being on this show and having the platform I do and people like actually listening to my voice and wanting to hear what I have to say. But even the things I've gotten to do in government and like the places I've gotten to travel, it's I never could have dreamed of it. And I feel like beyond grateful.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
Like, we're so lucky.
Yeah. No, we got to remember that on the hard days. Before we go, in one of the commercial breaks today, you and the other hosts got a question about whether or not you got into trouble as a kid or ever went to detention. The one who answered it outside on the commercial break was Sarah Haynes, who, shocker, never got into trouble, never went to detention, never got suspended.
Nerd.
Did you?
Yes. So I was a very good kid through elementary school. Mm-hmm. Junior high is a rocky time for girls. And I leaned into like just being rebellious. And my older sister was in high school and she was really rebellious. So I could get away with like minorly bad behavior. So I got detention a number of times. they called it on-site suspension, like once or twice. And once was because I decided with my friend Amber to cut class and like just walked off campus. Like no strategy, no anything. And the vice principal was like, "What are you doing? Come back," and send us right in. But my mom, God bless her, was not the disciplinarian she probably should have been. I'm already thinking about this in like when I have kids, like raising them, because I don't think I have the disciplining bone. But she let me get away with murder. So yes, I had detention. How about you?
I got in a lot of trouble.
That doesn't surprise me.
I got in a lot of trouble. I mean, my mother was a teacher in the school district, and so she heard about it all the time. First of all, hey, Grace and Lily, if you happen to be listening today, let's turn it off now.
Yeah,
Thank you. My kids have no idea about this. I cut classes all the time. I literally went to a parent guidance counselor meeting about me cutting classes, about how much trouble I was in, left the meeting and cut class. There was something wrong with me.
There was a brazenness at that age.
I rebelled. Because I very early on figured out that I was technologically more adept than my parents. This is early answering machine messages.
Yes.
I figured out how I could delete the messages before they heard them. Yep. So the school would call every day and say, Brian missed health class, Brian missed social studies. And then I was smart enough to still get a good grade on the finals at the end of the year and get by. But for some reason, my friends still joke about it, like, just got to get through the weekend, man, without getting caught. And that's how I thought about it. I just had to get through the weekend. And
that was the key, because I was like, if I could keep up my grades, that would be the main thing my mom would notice, because I was a latchkey kid. She was working at our news station, and she'd get home at like 6 at night. So Alana and I, my older sister, we'd get home and it was like a running thing. If she had cut class that day, I had to delete the answering machine. If I had, she would. My mom had no idea. Poor thing.
No, my biggest sin, and we'll go after this. My biggest sin was I got a report card, and it was bad, and I didn't want to get in trouble, so I went to a printer, like one of those like printing companies, and I got them to fake a different report card with all good grades on it. I shot too high. Like on a roll.
That's the problem. Oh no!
But my parents believed it. They took me out to dinner to celebrate.
Did you confess?
No, I didn't confess.
Oh no!
And then the school called and said to my father, "We need to talk about your son's report card." And he said, "Well, I'm looking right at it. What do we have to talk about?"
Oh,
I got in a lot of trouble. But
you shot too high though. The cover-up is always worse than the crime.
It was. But I will say, as the school was screaming at me, they were also really impressed with the quality of my work. The guy was holding it up to the light like, wow, this looks identical.
I'm impressed that a print shop would like let a high school kid come in.
It was like a burnout kid working behind the counter, and he's like,
totally,
all right.
He's like, fine.
I mean, I did all the work myself. He just turned the tools over to me, and I did it. But
totally.
To be fair, I cleaned up my act before graduating, and I got into a good school and turned everything around.
The one thing I will say in defense of younger us, there's so much pressure put on students, like high school, especially when there starts to be that pressure of like, are you thinking about college? Like, where do you want to go? Like, you need to start your extracurriculars and I was overwhelmed, and I was actually I really struggled in math my whole life. I can't remember what side of the brain of that is, but I'm not that side of the brain. And I think that a lot of times my like skipping or just not being the best student was because I was actually really struggling and didn't know how to articulate that to my mom. So
all right, well that's understandable.
Still not the answer though. You're not going to get smarter not showing up.
No, I mean in retrospect now I can't tell a lie without feeling guilty.
Me too.
The light switch clicked somewhere around 18.
Yeah. Mine overcorrected. I have a huge fear of authority.
Oh yeah, sure. That doesn't really seem to affect you at work, but yes. All right. Thank you for joining me today, Alyssa. Tomorrow I'll be back with Joy, who also does not have a fear of authority. And we'll see you then.